Coming up, we've worked hard to bring you another great episode. You know what would make my day? If you listen, yes, but you can really make me smile by subscribing. You can go to offtheNose.com or on whatever platform you're using right now. They all have that little subscribe button. Go there right now, click that, and boom, happy Kelly. If that's not enough, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Insta and Twitter. You can share the episode with your friends or colleagues. So many options to show your love. But let's just start simple and subscribe today, right now. Don't put it off. You guys rock. Hey everyone, today's show is super interesting. I guarantee you will never look at Walgreens or CVS the same way again. We have the founder and CEO of the Black Travel Box, Miss Orion Brown. This chick is badass. She is a Duke MBA, former Kraft product manager, turned, yes, off the nose, pivotal moment, entrepreneur. We're going to hear all about it, the ups and downs, and creating this product. Yes, she's into making money and wants it to be an awesome product, but it's a much bigger story than that. You're going to learn all about the hair and skincare industry, things you probably didn't want to know. Yeah, and in a very eloquent, educational, engaging sort of way. Miss Brown was an awesome guest with a niche product that goes beyond people of color. Let's go.
Gotta get it how it goes now. You gotta take it off the nose. It's off the nose. Gotta get back in control now. Let's stop believing in ourselves. It's off the nose.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on. We are off the nose, so we celebrate people like you, and you are former Kraft brand manager extraordinaire, JP Morgan. You've worked for some great companies, and somehow inside you got the nerve, the guts, the you-know-what, to leave the corporate world and do your own thing. And you're doing that as an entrepreneur, as the founder of the Black Travel Box, which is a super niche, cool product. Super excited to talk about that. But first, that first pivotal moment we make is sometime around high school. And we say, are we going to go college? Are we going to go to technical school? Are we going to travel around the world and live out of a backpack? So take me back there first. How did you grow up? How did you decide to go to college? You went to the University of Chicago, got a degree in human development. Who helped form that decision?
College was never a choice, right? So I grew up in a single parent household, and the expectation was that I was going to do something with myself. There was no frivolity of backpacking. I didn't know backpacking existed until after college. That wasn't something that...
Me too. I wish I had. Well, maybe it's better I didn't know.
Yeah. So it was that was never a choice. I didn't get my passport until I was 25. So, that idea of gap years and all of that the sweet young millennials do wasn't actually an option at the time, which was fine for me. I was very much focused on going to college. I say that I was pre-med since the age of 4. I was very, very focused. And everything that I did was driven towards not even necessarily getting into college. That wasn't a question of getting in. It was a question of, going somewhere really solid and then going on to med school, which, life comes at you fast. And as you know, you make pivots. So.
And so your parents were academia, or they were fixing what they didn't do right? How was that? How was it just expected that you would go to college?
I was always taught that I had all of the potential in the world, but I needed to work hard for it. And so, my mom talked to me about what I wanted to be when I grew up when I was like 4. I picked and then I focused. Yeah. So both of my parents, like I said, I grew up in a single parent household. Neither one of my parents finished college. Both went. They actually met at college. But neither one of them finished. And I I don't know. There was just never an expectation that I wouldn't.
Same for me. Neither of my parents. My mother went to college, didn't finish. My dad didn't go. He was hard knocks entrepreneur kind of guy. But it was expected. It wasn't a question. It was just expected. Okay, have you met with your guidance counselor? Where are you thinking of going? So it is interesting looking back, though, having parents that didn't graduate, that it was just so expected, right?
I mean, I think my mom really valued her education. She left school because she had the aunt that raised her had cancer and was raising 3 boys and was metastatic breast cancer. And so she had a double mastectomy and, major surgery and had 3 young boys to take care of. And my mom left school. I believe it was her last semester. She had 1 semester left. She left school. She transferred, but she couldn't quite balance it with the transferring. And so she went ahead and left. But I mean, she was a high grade, very academic student and did really well in school. She just had life circumstances that don't have resources and support available to you. You do what you have to do.
Yep. So it all comes back to the home, is my thoughts. So you go to University of Chicago. How do you choose human development? I think everybody should major in human development or psychology. So how did you choose that?
It was a pivot for me. So up through my 3rd year, I was a biological sciences concentration with a number of, minors, as they call them in a lot of schools. I had tried and dipped my toes into a lot of different things. But when I got to my 3rd year, I realized that I just didn't have the support system in place. I had a lot of stuff going on at home. That was bleeding into school, and it just making it really difficult for me to have my head 100% there. And I worked all the way through school as well. And so I was like, do I want to do another 6 years? Do I want to do another 6 years of, post-bac study and then going on to med school? And do I really have it's not even necessarily the passion or the want for it, the ability to do it. The ability wasn't the question. I think it really was the passion. It was like, do I really want to do this? And I took a step back. I prayed about it. And then I said, all right, the remaining 1.5 years of my school career, I'm just going to study what's interesting to me. And that's how I sort of ended up in human development, because it was one of my secondary sort of majors. And I liked it because psychology uses the scientific method, which is great, but then you can't explore sort of the anthropological and cultural aspects of psychology that aren't really those measurable aspects. And so being able to be a human development major at U of C was excellent because it balanced the psychology. I actually ran a psych lab and ran a study, and I was able to do a thesis, which was awesome. But I also was able to explore sort of those in-between spaces where we understand ourselves, we can articulate ourselves, but it's not necessarily something that we can measure.
Mm-hmm. And do you see how you've been able to apply that? I mean, you're a brand manager, marketing. I know you did some business analysis with JP Morgan, but basically brand management executive through your career until you founded this company. Have you been able to apply?
Oh, most definitely. I think there's 2 things that I took away from University of Chicago. One was the ability to learn quickly, to learn fast. I mean,
whatever it is.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, the amount of information that you're asked to assimilate in a short period of time and be able to articulate, based off of that is just, it's mind-boggling. People were like crying the first week. Oh my God, 400 pages of Thucydides. I can't do it. That kind of thing. And so that was a big piece. And then the psychology piece, I think, was multifaceted. I think it depends on the jobs that I was doing and the work that, as my career progressed, how much I ended up using it or the areas in which I ended up using it. So coming into JP Morgan, I wasn't a finance technical person, right? And so I used my ability to learn the technical stuff and to learn the finance quickly, but the people navigation, the organizational behavior aspects were absolutely fascinating to me. And I really felt like I could lean in to the psych work, the cultural psych, the organizational behavior, that logic work, the decision modeling type work, to really understand how to navigate the people. Because if you can get the people, you can get the rest of it.
Right.
As I moved into brand, where I was still running businesses and running P&Ls and more of a technical brand manager as opposed to a marketing brand manager. Everything did still come down to not only working with the people in the organization, because you had these massive cross-functional teams. I mean, oftentimes I would have a cross-functional team that could be upwards of, 80, 90 people, depending on the business that I'm working on. Everything from our finance and operations to our demand planning to our factory workers. And so understanding how people work, understanding what motivates people and how motivation sort of interacts with output and behavior, invaluable information.
Invaluable.
But the flip side to that is anytime you're working for a consumer products company, the consumer is the center of it. And so being able to use that psychology to better understand the consumers, what motivates them, because oftentimes they don't know.
Right.
People aren't really that self-aware. And so being able to look into how they behave, understand the underlying insight into that, and then develop products and communications based around that, core to the brand, core to the business. And it doesn't matter if you're the brand manager or the finance person.
Sure.
It really does help to understand who your consumer is, because then you can really plan based off of how they behave.
And you're consumer focused rather than all about your brand in such an egotistical way. And today, it's the marketing and the relationship with the consumer is so different.
Yeah, and it's evolving, right? So when you're doing marketing in a massive company, there's so many other elements that are not the consumer that are put into play, right? So when you're developing a product, it's not only what does the consumer want and need and what would be best for them, but it's also how do I keep, my margins where I want them? How do I make sure that I have the production partners that will do it the way that I want it done? And all of these other different elements, not to mention the marketing itself, right? And oftentimes I found that we made a lot of concessions from what was really kind of best to go with the consumer and building a brand, because a brand is nothing without the consumer. It's nothing without the consumer because it means nothing.
And it's not about them buying, which is so short-sighted and so old school. It's about how they feel about it at every moment in time in a two-way relationship.
Definitely. You don't have a brand, you have a product. If you're just selling things to people.
It's a great way to put it.
And so that's one of those things that understanding the consumer and actually acting on that information is critical.
Yep. Agreed. And so great learning experience because you're in the corporate world, and I relate because I was in the corporate world for 25 plus years and left to do this. And so, stifling at times, I would imagine, but I want to hear what you say, Orion. But also kind of good structure to learn, to be able to go out and do it on your own. Would you agree?
In terms of the transition from corporate to entrepreneurship?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I actually left corporate not to become an entrepreneur. So I originally started Black Travel Box as a passion project, and I was working on it nights and weekends, and it was just something fun to get my hands into it. It's been a while since I was working on my own brand, something tangible that I could really, kind of play around with. I was doing consulting for like Fortune 100 companies and all of this stuff, but it really wasn't anything that I was connecting with myself. And so I started it as a passion project just to kind of edify myself and edify my own curiosity. In parallel to that, I was also, in a corporate environment that was just a hyper magnified version of many of the corporate environments that I had been in. And being a woman of color, honestly, every day was a frustration. And at one point, I got to the point where I was like, I think I don't want you to pay me anymore. Like, I really like pay me. And I knew, I was like, that is the most insane thought, right? To be like, yeah, I don't need you. Just stop. It's okay. I'll leave you the computer. I'll leave you the badge.
Yeah.
And so when
Let me leave.
Yes, let me go. And it was incredibly liberating. And I joke, I finally left the plantation. But it was true. I mean, I was all of the microaggressions and all the things that you hear about in the media, that stuff is very true, and it is very daily, and it is very constant. And there are situations where you go, oh, well, people just don't understand. there are situations where people fully understand what they're saying and have no problem with it. And it's just not acceptable behavior. And I think for me, it wasn't worth it. I was like, I'd rather be, miserable somewhere else and maybe not have a commute. So I left with
on my own terms.
On my own terms. And I fully left with the expectation I would just get a job somewhere else. I'm very employable. I understand that. And this was pre-COVID, obviously very pre-COVID.
Right, where we had full confidence in our
right. Now it's like, I don't know if those offices even exist.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of dysfunction and stuff going on, which we see happening a lot in corporate as well, and so leaving was just sort of a separate thought. And I thought, well, so what should I do? I'll go get another job. And then I was like, I need a break. I'm exhausted. I just went through a really stressful year of mayhem and foolishness with work. What should I do? And so I decided to take some time off. And again, I prayed about it because, at least at the important stuff, I know to ask a higher power.
Right.
So
I'm a smart girl, but I know when to give up. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I was like, you know what? Let me either fail spectacularly with Black Travel Box. Like, just make it obvious. I don't need to drag this out. Like, make it obvious. Let me fail spectacularly, or let me win big and let me see it. Because I am, to your point, not the brightest when it comes to, sort of these big life directional things. And the biggest life directional moments, I have really just left to God to figure out. I'm like, you're smarter than me. Why would I even bother? Like, I know when to farm it out. I know when to get a consultant in.
Yeah.
And so I gave it 3 months, and I was
3
like,
months.
3 month
Okay.
period, I want to
What'd you do in the 3 months?
So in that 3 month period, it was a whirlwind. I feel like more things came to me than I actually put out.
Love that. Well, that's because you had your head up.
Yeah.
And you were aware.
I had my head up, and I was also really standing in faith that like things need to come my way to make it obvious, because me trying really hard, right? Like when you try really hard and you're fighting uphill and it's not the right hill to be climbing, it doesn't look any different to you. So I was like, it has to be things that I think, that there was no obvious thing that I was doing to make them happen, to show me that, there's a bigger purpose for this. And so it was interesting. My partner at the time was speaking at 𝐂𝐈𝐓 and I always tell the story because people ask me, when was the moment you knew? When did you know? And
the fork in the road, the pivot. Yeah.
And it was that moment. I had like a janky website up. I built everything myself. Had a janky little website up. Hadn't promoted it at all. Like zero promotion. I was like, I don't know how to tell people. I was like, but if I build it, people will come. And then I realized how big the internet was. And I was like, oh, about that. Okay. I should probably do some work around that. But hadn't even gotten to that yet. I had, just a little tiny set of MVP products. And I was going out to discreet people and just like asking them to try it and like give me feedback. But that was pretty much it. And so I end up at a +1 at 𝐂𝐈𝐓 and, obviously a massive event and the galas and the things like that. And I have a VIP pass now. And I remember being embarrassed putting my company name on it because I came up with a company name like in an afternoon when I decided to like put the LLC.
What was it?
The Black Travel Box. But I was just like, I haven't vetted this. Like, I haven't done anything against it.
You didn't whiteboard it. You didn't hire an agency. You didn't spend $100,000. Shame on you.
Oh my God. Well, since I've actually, you speak about like whiteboarding it and people will sell you what you want to buy. That's called capitalism. Yes. And there were times even in corporate where I was really pissed at how much money we were spending and how much money I was spending because the powers that be and the relationships with agencies and things like that. But there are things that life is not that expensive. It
doesn't have to be that challenging. If you come up with a good name on the back of a napkin at a gala, it's okay.
Well, and it's one of those things, even if it wasn't the best name, just getting started was the key. Like, just call it something. You can always rebrand later. You can always come back once you've been funded and take $150K and rebrand the whole thing, and they'll start from the ground up and you'll be fine, but get started somewhere. So long story short, I ended up sitting at one of the VIP dinners right next to the editor-in-chief at the time of Inc. magazine, Jim Ledbetter, and we had a great talk about Instapots and food and just stuff that I love.
Yeah.
And then he happened to look at the little badge and he was like, oh, what's Black Travel Box? Tell me about that. And I was like, I don't have a pitch yet. Crap. What is it? I literally just put it there because I was like, I'm not going to put my old.
I'd be taking that bomb out and putting it on him.
I was like green. I was like, so here's what I made and here's what we do. And I'm still pretty early. And he was like, this is fascinating. And he called someone else over. And as he was introducing me, he's like, this is Orion Brown. And she has this company. And the woman finished the sentence and was like, the Black Travel Box, right? Yeah, we know who you are. And I said, and I just about peed my pants. I didn't say nothing, but I was like, really? Yeah, that's awesome. And she's like, yeah, we were talking about you. We looked at your site. We saw that you were still in beta because I had put on there, I'm in beta. I'm too chicken to say that I'm actually launched. And she's like, we saw you were in beta, so we didn't approach you about like interviewing or anything yet. We wanted to like give you a chance to kind of get fully launched. And I was floored. So, this is the very few times that I say fake it till you make it. I was like, yeah. Totally. Awesome. Wonderful.
I have my shit together.
Exactly. But that's what I did. I said, you know what? This is not a situation that I would have ever been in any other, any other universe. Like it was so bizarrely good and it was so bizarrely edifying. And that was a cascade, that 3-month period. I got coverage. I got mentioned in Forbes. I was in Black Enterprise. I was like, I don't even have a team.
Love this.
I don't know what I'm doing.
But that's even better. That's why you have to go for it. Right? Because if you wait till it's perfect, it's first of all, there's some people that believe we never ever get there, wherever there is.
Yeah, it's an ideal.
It's an ideal.
Unattainable.
Yeah. And so how did you literally create the products? I mean, you don't have an engineering background. Who did you get to mix it up?
So I created the products. I formulated them myself. And it's a funny thing when you make products that aren't full of a lot of crappy ingredients.
Oh, it's a little easier.
It's really not that hard to do. What I would say is from a marketplace perspective, the barrier to entry into skincare and cosmetics is pretty low. Anybody can learn how to make a lipstick or a body lotion or whatever it might be. And the coverage by the FDA, which is kind of scary, is woefully low as well. Unless you have an active ingredient, there isn't a ton that they're actually looking at. That being said, I do have a science background, and I've worked with our R&D departments over the years as we do food development. When you're doing food is actually a lot more stringent. There's a lot more that goes into it. That being said, there's plenty of, I guess I would say like wholesalers of ingredient that also supply, formulations and things that you can do. So it really started out with an MVP. My intention was to do what I had done, in my corporate days, which is anytime you want to launch a product or a new category, you go to a manufacturer, you say, look, it's not going to be billions of units. It's going to be like a few, 10,000 or so, 20,000, maybe 200,000 units to start out. We're just testing it. Work with us on formulation, and then we can guarantee you, a few $1 million in revenue over the next few years as we build it out. Well, when you're small,
yeah. How do you get them to answer the phone?
Well, it's not that the answering the phone isn't that big of a deal because there is a market out there. So typically there's a couple things, and I don't know if this is too technical. So you kick me if I go too technical.
Okay.
But basically, there's big manufacturers and there's smaller manufacturers. The bigger manufacturers will have what they call pilot plants, which are small plants that they use for smaller runs, for sample runs, for things like that. So I knew that could be potentially a target. The other piece is the smaller manufacturers. The GDP of the United States is primarily made up of small businesses. There are tons of people out there making their own products or getting their own products made in smaller quantities. When I say smaller, I'm talking tens or hundreds of thousands of units, as opposed to millions or billions of units annually. And so I was like, okay, I got my list. I know who I'm going to. The problem I ran into was twofold. One, our products are formulated to travel better, get through TSA. So we're anhydrous, there's no water in them. Our shampoo, conditioner, co-washes are all solid bars. Our balms don't have any water in them. And that is very different than what the industry is making. The industry likes to make more of the same thing with a different scent. It's very easy to get your own podcast branded chapstick made. or your podcast branded lotions made. Now I'm saying, well, yeah, I know you make it like that, but I need you to put extra processes in, and I'm not going to pay you more, and you have to slow down your lines. And
yeah, because that's appealing.
That's not appealing, right?
Right.
Secondarily to that, even just the initial pitch with a lot of these manufacturers, which I wasn't expecting, but then wasn't surprised when I found it, was the initial pitch when I hadn't even gotten to the technicality of what we were trying to make. They were like, oh, it's for black skin and hair. Yeah, we don't really do products. We don't really do products for, I remember one saying Afro kinky hair. And I was like, I'm pretty sure we haven't called it an Afro.
Is that a word?
And
okay.
So, yeah, so I've gotten politely and not so politely dismissed over just who our consumer is. And so
do they take, these are companies putting the formulas together and signing off on it. Where is the liability there? Like, why do they care what you're making and what you're selling? Is there liability?
Well, I mean, it's just like people saying, I don't want to bake a cake for a gay couple.
Okay. So it's that straightforward.
I could pay you to do a thing that you do, or I could not pay you to do a thing that you do. And some people would prefer not to be paid to do it.
Got it.
I mean, that's the best way I can put it. Like, you know, there's no liability from an insurance perspective. Like everybody.
Well, it seems crazy. Money's money. What would they care? Why do they care what you're making? But
exactly. And I think, you know, part of it is one, a bias towards calling our entire consumer set niche, right? So it's like, oh, it's niche, so you're not going to be very big. We spent $63 billion on travel in 2018. We grew that travel market $20 billion over 8 years. We spent $471 million on shampoo, and we don't shampoo every day.
Just saying.
You know, we spend 9x, Black women spend 9x every other ethnic group on beauty and personal care products.
Yeah.
So if you tell me it's a niche market, I would say go back and look at the numbers. But I think people do have that in mind.
Sure.
And it's sort of the thought, well, okay, so how much business am I going to get from this in the future? Also,
well, you know, if you walk into Walgreens, you know, that's the CVS's, the Walgreens, the major markets, do you see it represented? So that's probably why those statistics are surprising, because it's not like you walk in and there's a large portion of the store or even a significant portion dedicated to maybe those kinds of products.
Yeah, we have to find other places to sell.
Yeah.
And this is how you have companies like Black Girl Sunscreen selling one SKU essentially, and really blowing up the marketplace with the right investment and the right support and the right advertising. It's like, well, but Black people, do they really need sunscreen? I don't think this is going to be a thing. Okay, that's not how biology works. So.
Oh my God, somebody said that?
I'll have to tell you, and this is a digression, but this will give you the sense of the type of things that people say without really thinking. I was speaking with a good friend of mine at Duke University. She works over there in their D&I efforts, and she recounted to me being a teenager in high school. And I don't know if this was the coach or if it was a sub or whatever it was, but they're on the track and they're running track. And the person says to her, oh, we're going to have to work on your form because Black people have an extra bone in their foot that makes it impossible for them to flex it properly. And she and I laughed about this, but there's actually people walking around on the planet that actually believe that the biological basis of race is real. And so, exactly. And so this is the kind of stuff you fight when you're having a simple conversation with somebody about, well, I'd like to make shampoo bars. Well.
Oh my God.
Lush does. Lush makes them. And there's a few other companies that make them as well. So it's not unheard of to do, but I think it's that whole, like, you're too exotic. It's going to be really complicated. We're going to end up doing more work than we need to. And it's like, if I wanted to rebottle some Pert Plus 2-in-1, I would have been rolling.
Yes, you would.
A year and a half ago. But that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what my customer needs. That's not what my consumer needs. And I started a company so I could be truly beholden to my consumers.
Yeah. And I'm sure you get challenged with that every day because you do have to make money. You have to be profitable. I mean, so that's that whole same thing that you encountered at Kraft, right? Coming up with a great product that meets a consumer need, but proving the ROI at the same time. So it's a challenge, right?
I mean, again, with a customer that spends that much in the category,
you just need to reach them.
You just need to reach them, right? And you need to serve them in the way that they want to be served. I mean,
where are women of color buying skincare and hair products now or prior to Black Travel Box?
I mean, I think for their travel needs, so it was funny to me because I was sure somebody was already doing this. I was sure of it. I was like, I'm not about to embarrass myself. I came up with this idea. You know, people were like, I've always thought, you know, they should have the thing on the toilet. It squirts water. Yeah, it's called a bidet. It's been around for like 300 years.
You don't even have to go to Europe and you can find one.
You can find them, exactly.
Amazing.
And they're getting funded here too, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to me, I thought it's already out there. I went to the Natural Products Expo and things like that, and I found that it wasn't there. And then as I was talking to potential customers and consumers and doing that research and going, well, I know where I get my stuff. Where do you get yours? It's, you know, it's the basic. I have to take the stuff that's my favorite stuff from home and rebottle it into little containers. And then I have to put the plastic over the top and seal it and make sure it doesn't seal. And then I put it in a Ziploc bag, but then I can't take enough. So then I end up taking extra. Or you have the person that's like, I just say, screw it. I pay the $60 and I check my bag, right? And I just pull all my stuff from home and check my bag. And then I started getting to the folks that were like, well, I go to the grocery store and I try to find grapeseed oil or coconut oil. And I use that to try to extend it because I know I'm not going to have enough product. And if I get a whole big bottle of something, even if I find it, I'm going to have to throw it away. But usually I can't find it. And that was, you know, at first I was like, that's genius. And then I was like, wait, you are not thought enough of within anyone's beauty standard to have products available to you that actually work for you wherever you go.
Right.
But my positioning for my brand could be all about, well, you know, you just don't want to waste money on buying the big bottles every time you go somewhere. There are no big bottles, even when you're in the States. So it doesn't
That's
matter.
where I was going with it. Is the product, did the innovation of the company and the product come out of not having the right sizes or literally not having enough of these types of products in general?
So we know for Black women, the hair and skincare industry, the beauty industry is broken, right? So we don't have, as you said, as you pointed out, not a ton of shelf space. We have an ethnic aisle. We actually segregate our aisles and feel okay about that. We still use the word normal on shampoo bottles.
Yeah, we do.
So what is normal mean?
What is normal?
What is everything
I hate that
else?
word.
Right. Yeah. So we have an industry that's broken with a product double standard and a beauty standard that actually doesn't work for a lot of women, but it's most, I guess, piercing with women of color. Then for where we do have products, there was a study that came out just a couple years ago where finally somebody looked at what products were being sold in the ethnic aisle, because we already know we've removed most of the crap out of sort of the mainstream aisle. We look at the ethnic aisle, and we're not just talking about like relaxers and chemical-based stuff. We're talking about serums and all kinds of things. So many products had off-label ingredients that they weren't even bothering to report. You know, formaldehydes, ingredients that are called, you know, that basically stop and block your hormones. Ingredients that cause things like fibroids, which if you look at fibroids in the Black community, pretty much every other Black woman I know has a fibroid.
Was this to keep the price point down, further discrimination, but was this to get the price point down, or is this just back to your other point? This is just what they make. This is what they put in all products. So nobody's thinking about it.
I think it's a couple things. I think when you have a society, and not to get like, you know, super into like underlying biases and things like that, but we've seen the studies where the perception of pain, the perception of hurt of Black people, and particularly Black women in general, has been like undervalued. So it's sort of like, oh, well, they're strong. They can handle it. It's not a big deal. They're not as delicate. They're not as susceptible. That's one piece. But I think it's, to your point, also this idea that, yeah, it's cheaper to make it with this ingredient. This ingredient makes it whip up higher, or it makes the color brighter. And in some cases where we would be much more biased towards, looking at the product and going, but do we really want to put that on people? We're not having that conversation when it comes to, this particular group. I'm sorry, we've got company. And so, as we're doing that, we're also, it's also looking at things like how shelf stable is it? So if you look at where Black women are purchasing hair and skincare products, particularly hair care, we're going to beauty supply shops. If we're in major cities, we're going to bodegas. And so these are places that product may sit on the shelf a little bit longer. Again, because we're not in a mainstream aisle and everybody isn't purchasing it. We have this bias towards, if you see a person of color on the package, it's not for everyone. If we don't see a person of color, then everyone can buy it. And people purchase based off of that, period. And so, to be able to
you're saying Black women are purchasing stuff that says normal and that they know is not really the best for their hair or skin?
Well, I think you purchase what's available to you, right? And you purchase what's, you kind of make do with what's out there. And so,
okay, fair enough.
It's really, but if you,
so there's an education opportunity for people of color and their purchases.
No, so what I'm saying is more like this. So if you go into the hair color aisle, right, and you see this wall of boxes, these women, all these different hair colors, typically what you'll see is white faces with a bunch of different hair colors, right? And then on the end, you may see 4, 8, maybe 10, my God, boxes of women with black. So what do? You go, oh, that's for them. This is for us. For Black women, we're like, but that's only like 10 colors. So I still need to go and look at the 15 different blondes, the 20 different reds, the different colors of brown, and I need to imagine what those colors look like on me.
Got it.
So that is true for most women of color in different variations. Over the years, we've seen some more diversity start to happen in that aisle, but in general, the expectation is all mainstream products are for everyone, and these products are just for these people. I hate to tell you, but hair is keratin and protein and water, just like, our skin. These are all the same across everybody. The way they're structured may be different, but I can use a product that works for my hair, and it doesn't matter what it's labeled, if that makes sense. And so,
sure.
And so I've had a number of women come up to me and go, oh, well, I sneak into the ethnic aisle all the time because I can't use the stuff that's in that mainstream aisle. And that's true. The industry doesn't recognize that there is a spectrum of people, right?
Yep.
And come in all shapes, sizes, colors, forms, curly hair, dry hair, straight hair, and so that's where the challenge really comes in, that differentiation that people are people. There isn't a racial line, there isn't a cultural line. And product should be developed with people in mind. And
right.
It just isn't. And so to get back to the ingredients, it's not really developed with people in mind, particularly when it comes to the ethnic aisle. It's developed with what's the cheapest way to get it out and make it smell good and keep it on shelf as long as possible so that I can get the highest margin.
Yep. But you see, you see some celebrities getting involved, and I hate to just mention celebrities, but they've got the loudest voices, and I think it's good, right? The more involvement, the more attention on this subject, the better. But you have seen some celebrities getting involved, specifically in hair. I think I've seen mostly in hair. I don't know how much in skincare, but you've seen some of those?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of celebrities starting their own brands, that's a big thing. But even prior to that, if you look at the discussion back in sort of like the 2017, 2018 timeframe, everyone from Mindy Kaling to Gabrielle Union, Halsey,
yes,
talking about like, I can go to the fanciest hotel and I still can't use the products. Because when they made that product, they were not thinking of a person like me. And it's really interesting because that conversation sometimes gets a little convoluted because you kind of get the kickback of, well, nobody likes their shampoo. It's cheap stuff. But it's like, yeah, these people are staying at like the Beverly Hilton. They're not,
right.
Yeah, that's not the game that's being played here. There truly is an industry that doesn't formulate to the middle, to the true middle, if that makes sense.
So what should Hilton do? I mean, do you check in and you choose your type of hair?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's very interesting. So you can check in and choose whether or not you want, a hypoallergenic room, if you want your bed sheets to be hypoallergenic.
That's right. Your pillows. Yep.
You can let them know if you have, nut allergies. So those aren't included in your little nightstand thing, your little snack thing. I never get them. It's too expensive. My goodness.
I know.
So
come on, $14 peanuts are fun.
Right, exactly. Like, I'm just gonna go to the gas station on the way.
Yeah.
Or I'll order in dinner.
Yeah.
But so there is room for more customization, but there's also room for these companies to work with brands and with companies that provide product in bulk that gives them options, right? So like every shampoo doesn't have to strip your hair down to its like naked, god awful like root, right? Which is bad for one person and awful for another. And the story I typically share about that is, I made the mistake of not bringing enough shampoo, thought I would be okay. It's an okay hotel. It should be fine. It wasn't like I was staying in a Motel 6. It should be okay. I need to wash my hair. And my hair matted and reacted so poorly to it. It was like a nest. It matted so badly. I couldn't comb it. And I thought I was going to have to cut it. I really did think I was going to have to
my God.
My hair was damaged for a few weeks after that. And so there has to be some way for us to go, maybe we should just test this so that the most people can use it at minimum and be mediocrely like happy with it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so not to
be amazing.
Right. So it's really it's not just about people of color. It's also about quality of products we use across the board, even in the normal aisle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's about understanding that human beings are not this homogenous beauty ideal where their hair is straight, the porosity is exactly XYZ, and they're blonde. I mean, how many products are for blondes? I mean, I'm sure you get your purple shampoos, you get your purple hair gel.
I have lots of options.
You have tons of options. How many people are actually blonde? I'm not talking people of color, just in general, how many people are actually blonde? So it's not like we can't do it. It's not like we can't recognize that people have different needs.
Absolutely.
That we're not spending in the places that those needs, are most needing to be met and that we're willing to pay for. I think one of the reasons why we spend 9x more is because we're searching through products. If you ask a Black woman, we have product graveyards in our house where we've spent thousands of dollars on product. And there's like a basket in the closet, and then there's a basket under the sink, and then there's the stuff that's in the shower, and the stuff that's on the counter. And whether it's oscillating just based on our hair care needs or our skincare needs, or if it's us going, I tried that, it was terrible, it was a bad experience, I had to put my hair in a protective style for 6 weeks after that.
Totally.
There's a lot to it. There's a big market, so I'd say we're not so niche.
So don't you think with what's going on with the world, there's never been maybe a better opportunity for products like this, for companies like the Black Travel Box? We have been forced. I won't go into how I think it's probably God's hand involved, but that is my belief. And so now we are forced to reckon with kind of our deeds of the past, but also in every situation I see opportunity. And there's a real opportunity for people to work from home, to create niche products like this, to break down the old supply chains and the old ways of thinking. So isn't there a lot of hope and a light at the end here?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I think, whether or not we came into the season that we're in right now, I get enough notes from people from around the world, which is just crazy to me.
Awesome.
Saying like, I heard you on, Gimlet Media's The Pitch, and I don't understand why they didn't get it, but I think this needs to be here. I want it here. Let me know when you ship to Norway. Let me know when you ship to, and these are markets that, ostensibly should have products in them, and people are living there as expats. And so even from that regard, we still know that the underlying brokenness of the beauty industry for women of African descent in particular is there, and it's permeating and it's everywhere. I knew when I stepped foot in Kenya and I couldn't find products.
You have a problem.
I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like you over.
Is this a true story?
Yes, it is. I'm not being facetious. So, but this is also a place that I went with a group and we were building a house for Habitat for Humanity, and we're all, you know, Black Americans, and we're really excited, and we go to Homa Bay and we go to build this house, and we go out to dinner in Nairobi, and they send us to a restaurant, and they're just like, you know, it's a nice restaurant. You're Americans. You should probably like a nice restaurant. And we were the only Black people in there except for the help, and being stared at as we walked through the restaurant. And, you know, you had to strut a little bit. You got to strut. You got to be like, yeah, we have to leave a good tip. Don't even worry about it.
Right.
But understanding that this dichotomy, this duality of existence in the world is still here. And I think people are starting to see that. They're starting to experience it, unfortunately, but fortunately, right? So we're starting to experience that with all of the things that are happening with the protests and all of that, where African Americans aren't the only people that are being now victimized by it. And people are going, well, wait a minute, whoa, you can't be doing all that.
Right.
And it's, you know, it's unfortunate. I don't want anybody to go through what we go through. I really don't. And I think even the mission for Black Travel Box, while I am unabashedly here to bring a voice for women of color, buy it if you want to. And if it works for you, that's great. You know, like, I don't care who purchases it, because I know, just like the movements that are happening now in the streets that are about a very particular issue, that will benefit everyone. When we figure out how to not allow people to abuse power, everyone will benefit.
That's right.
When we figure out how to take normal off of a package, everyone will benefit. I mean, if we took it away from hair care and skincare and just talked about general beauty standards, when we get to a place that we don't expect women to look a certain kind of way, everyone will benefit.
Totally.
There hasn't been an iteration yet where we haven't found women putting their life in danger to look like an expectation that doesn't even exist.
That's right.
And so for me, it's a broader fight, and it's a broader challenge, and we all have to participate in it in our own way and contribute to it and get us closer.
Yeah, I agree. But there is opportunity because we're talking. So, and being aware and learning. And, you know, if both sides give each other a break, you know, I'm not Black. I don't know everything about the Black culture, but I'm, you know, so please don't strike me down for everything I say. I'm learning, and I want to understand and be aware of things that are out there. So I think if we all give each other a break and have general unity about the subject, that we want to all have equal opportunity, more than that, equal outcomes, and be representative. I don't know if there should be, I think, you know, 12% of Americans are Black. Should 12% of skincare and hair care be Black? I don't know. I don't have those answers. I would imagine it's much less than that now.
So what I would say is we're closer to 14%, which gives us about 43, 45 million people. And so what I would say is, you know, we're a group that spends more and we buy more. So if you want to do it really clinically and look at just from a capitalist perspective, I would say you would over-index in products that go towards the community that purchases the most of them.
Sure.
So if you're looking in fashion and you're like, well, who's purchasing, you know, runway products, like, you know, skirts that are coming off the runway? Well, you're not gonna market to Joe Schmo in Iowa to purchase off the runway. No, you're gonna go to
New York, LA,
and
Paris,
you're gonna down on, and you're gonna send them samples, and you're gonna really press into the people that are gonna purchase you. And so I don't think it really takes too much of a political eye. I think it takes a removal of the bias to get to, I want to be frivolously marketed to just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Right? Like the sunscreen industry for years could have been telling me that I needed sunscreen because I would buy it. But they're like, they're fine. They're Black. They'll just, and it's like, there's so many biases and incorrect beliefs that are underlying, you know, what we do. And to your point of, you know, like us all being on the same page, it has to truly start with empathy. Empathy sits there with the person and says, I hear you. I may not understand it. I may not, experience
I didn't walk
it,
that path. Yeah.
but I can feel it with you, and I can be uncomfortable with you. And I always tell people, start with the empathy, learn what that looks like. I share Brene Brown all the time.
Yep.
Learn what empathy looks like. Now look at what the definition of privilege is. Not privilege by race, just what the definition of privilege is, and understand that. And then you'll begin to see how it's happening. And then, go on to look at things like fragility and understand that study, because we all have things that we're fragile about. We all have things that we have privileges, and we all have things that we don't understand, and have that wall where empathy really has to be a task, not a feeling.
Totally.
And that can apply to anything, for women's rights, for gay rights, not even for rights. It could just be for just understanding. I mean, ableism. People talk about ableism, and like now it's a big push. Every website needs to have, alt tags on their images, because not everybody can see. And you're like, well, but people can see the picture right there. No, people can't, And so I think that's what we have to do. And Black Travel Box is a part of that process in creating a platform that not only allows our consumers to feel seen and edified, but also creating a platform to yell from the rooftops, hey, normal isn't a thing. Stop it.
Yeah, I'll yell that. They're trying to tell me I'm normal. I'm not normal.
Yeah.
I don't want to be normal.
Nobody wants to be boxed. I think the idea of fitting in and the mean girls kind of thing, where it's like nobody really wants to be a Stepford wife. No one really wants to be
right.
We want to show our own uniqueness. And I think one of the countercultures in society today, particularly in America, is that individuality and expressing oneself in a very unique way. And it just hasn't permeated our beauty ideals yet, but we'll get there.
Did we get, I know you know that you point to some underlying discrimination and so forth, but did we get lazy? Did we get too focused on the bottom line? How did we become okay with normal and the same ingredients and just slap a different label on it and make it in China? It's like, how did we get there?
Well, I mean, so if we look at, and not to get too nerdy, but if we look at sort of, post-war industrial revolution type stuff, when we came out of the Depression, and this was particularly in the food industry, and this is actually, I think, where it's most detrimental to America.
Food industry is a big one. Mm-hmm.
Food industry is huge, and it affects our health, and our hair can't be shiny with shampoo if we're not eating the right stuff. So the way that essentially worked was, we came out of the Depression. Everybody was broke. Everybody's like, soup kitchen, just need to feed myself. Win a war. We're going into a boom. We're coming out of a bust. We have a lot of women that don't know how to cook anymore because they went to work, which is okay. That's completely fine.
Thank you. I was waiting for somebody to tell me it's okay.
It's like, I feel like it's art. Like, I can't draw to save my life, but I can cook my ass off.
Yep.
And it depends on what you think is important, I think. But in any case, so we have a bunch of people who are looking for convenient ways, because they still had a social expectation to make big meals.
Yes.
So what does the food industry do? We find ways to make one thing that's super convenient, is safe, because that was a big concern. Like, how do I make the same thing repeatably without giving people ptomaine poisoning? And those very basic, we don't want bubonic plague in our jars of peanut butter. And so how do we do this over and over again? And this is where you got, and to my business alma mater, Kraft's, model, the blue box of macaroni and cheese. It's a complete meal. It's nutritious because it's fortified. It's colorful and tasty, so people will actually want to eat it. They were really going off of sort of a Maslow hierarchy.
And anybody can make it.
And anybody can make it, and it's super easy, and you can be the hero for the day. And so that's where you get the Betty Crockers of the world and the Crafts and all of that. We started getting Hungry Man meals and all of these things. The underlying incentive is to make it as cheaply and as quickly and as consistently as possible. So this is where you start getting hydrogenated oils. This is where you start getting lots of sugars. This is where you start getting food dyes and all of these things in mass. People weren't meant to eat these things at that level every day.
Why were we so stupid as consumers to accept that?
I don't think was a matter of stupidity. I think it was a matter of need. I think it was also a mix of marketing and people not realizing how unscrupulous the world is. People, power.
We believed what they were selling us, and why would they sell us something that isn't good?
Yeah, that's exactly. And if you talk to boomers and you talk to them about what they ate growing up and what was made, they were like, they made it so it must be safe. Because we had food guide pyramids and we had, nutrition facts and all of that stuff. They assumed that the checks and balances were there, but the checks and balances weren't necessarily built for them because they were also built on geopolitical and social and economical things, right? So we had subsidies in corn, we had subsidies in sugar, we had subsidies in soy, we had pulled all this money into that. Hell no, we're not going to stop that industry and pull it all back. And now we've got the agricultural pundits who are going out and making sure that those subsidies continue on. And this is why you have corn in your hot dog.
Yeah.
What it takes is that initial idea of democracy where we said we wanted to have a hand in our government for us to actually be paying attention and going, well, wait a minute, because I'm an expert in this over here, and then somebody should be an expert in that over there, and we should all be talking about it and deciding actively what's in our best interest.
Yep. And now we have a fighting chance because really the consumer is in charge more than ever.
Yeah. Now we have to use that power, just like we have to use the power to vote. We have to and pay attention.
Totally.
That power to lobby for the things that are valuable to us. The EU has much more stringent quality standards for ingredients. They just ban ingredients from coming into their country.
Yes. We don't have that luxury, so we have to take accountability for what we put in our mouth, in our hair, on our skin.
Well, we do have the luxury. We have the luxury of putting the right people in place who will.
Well, this is true.
Right? So,
this is true.
But it's about whether or not we believe our consumerism is more important than our own health.
Yes. I think there's a shift there.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming, and it's coming in a lot of different ways. And I think with the democratization of information, like back in the 90s, when the internet was like Metacrawler and Lycos, like people weren't in chat rooms talking about, there was only like the hoo-ha, the Yahoo people that were out there, not Yahoo the company, but the wackadoos or the various names for people.
The Yahoo people.
People who were like, I'm vegan. And you're like, I've never heard of such a thing. And we could make
what's wrong with you? Yeah.
But then they're like, do you know what you're putting in your body? And you're like, it's fine. Now we have that information front and center. And now we're like, well, I guess everything should just be vegan because it tastes good anyway, or it looks good. Why should my lipstick have stuff in it that I don't want to have in it? And so we're getting there.
There. It is awareness. It's crazy, right? Because you don't like those ingredients, but you don't know what to do about it. And we didn't have a lot of choices. And now we have more choices, like Black Travel Box and things like this, if we can get access to these things.
Well, and it's all about also using your money to make the choices happen. Because if people said, I refuse to eat more corn, I heard that I'm eating too much corn and I refuse, it would start coming out of stuff, and which it has started coming out of stuff. And now you're seeing nitrite-free hot dogs and hams and things like that.
Yes.
It's all about the dollars, because if people go, oh, well, I'm still buying it, they'll still make it. If you stop buying it, they'll stop making it, make something else. That's
right. That's exactly right. Same thing with the trash magazines, which I am guilty of, but you can't complain that that's ruining our culture or a part of it if you keep spending $5 on People magazine.
Can't be mad that the paparazzi are going after people and violating their rights if you're still consuming the content that they're creating. Exactly.
So I love this. I know we're winding down, but I wanted to bring up this travel crush you do. I love this. You highlight, I believe it is all women of color, but who are travel addicts, or maybe they went on a crazy awesome trip, and I'm assuming they submit these things to you, and you highlight these people maybe every week. I think this is a really cool concept. You started?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, Black Travel Box is all about our consumer. Like I said, very consumer centric. And it selfishly just came from my own frustration of working on, major brands and running major brands and not being able to be like, but this is what they want. you know?
Right.
One of the biggest things that any human being wants is just to be seen and just to be acknowledged. And so one of the things that we do is, while we may have an occasional model or something like that, anybody that we show you looks attainably, happy and beautiful, and their variety of beauty is much broader than sort of that generic expectation.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to show how beautiful all of the women are that follow us. Our audience is about 94% female. And why go out and find this stuff? Why go out and get it shot? I mean, it's expensive. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah.
And going out and shooting it themselves. And frankly, they're better than I am at it.
Right.
Photographer. I need them to come take some photos for me.
Right.
So it's been great doing that. And the intention is started out just to spotlight them and give them, kudos and show them that there is a brand celebrating them.
Yes.
But then, we did what we called a hospital hero sale, which basically you could come onto the site and get a special discount if you're, a medical worker. Just
COVID box or something. Yeah, I saw that. Mm-hmm.
Well, the COVID box is actually a donation item, but this was just for the medical workers who are just out there and haven't pampered themselves and want an opportunity to do so.
Okay.
Something. And we highlighted a woman who was actually an Army medic. And, so we put her in all our emails, and we put her on, social, and she was following us. It's not like we just randomly stalk somebody. That would be a little creepy. But I remember her sending us a DM and being like, "You have me over here crying." And I'm like, that's beautiful.
Oh,
it cost me nothing to make you feel special.
Yeah.
To show the world how beautiful you are and how cool you are. And then she's a badass. I mean, she's out here doing it for our country and on the front lines and looking.
She's
really
easy to highlight.
I mean, but we all have things that are easy to highlight about us, and they're always, I don't think we get told that enough. And so
this is true.
Weekly and just say, "Girl, you are beautiful." And yes, we saw that picture, and kudos to you. It's just a really wonderful and fun thing to do.
Well, and you're highlighting, Black people traveling. I saw some information from you, on that more Black people need to travel. And you were highlighting in this video, I saw some, new adventure type groups that are specifically focusing on Black travel. And so I didn't even realize that was a thing,
Oh, it's a movement. It's a whole movement.
Which is awesome.
As a businesswoman, outside of the cultural aspects of this, it is dumb to sleep on a group that is going out and traveling in mass, and they're growing exponentially year over year. $20 billion in spend growth annually over the course of 8 years. When you look at the frequency, so the sort of political underpinning or the social underpinning to this is, I'm almost 40. My parents' generation, they were the Green Book generation, right? So they were the ones that you didn't really travel around because it wasn't necessarily safe. And now we're saying it's not necessarily safe now either, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I'm ignoring that. I'm in total denial because I'm a travel freak.
Well, I mean, and for the most part, you'd probably be fine doing it. So the key for us, though, is my generation is now discovering the world, right? Because our parents and our grandparents only traveled the world for the most part if they were serving their country.
Necessity.
Putting on the front lines. And so now we're experiencing the world in a very different way, and it is explosive. I mean, the travel groups on Facebook, there's a group, Black Travel Movement on Facebook, I think has almost 500,000 members.
This is awesome.
Facebook group. And they're just constantly sharing stuff every day.
Well, and think about it, right? So like I said, I'm a huge believer in travel. And if I have two kids, 20 and 17, and if they could have just traveled and got the seal of the education just from that, and that would have worked out, I would have preferred, because I believe that if you want to open your mind and have empathy and understand, you travel.
Yeah.
Traveling is where you learn about other people and other cultures, and you really open your mind and find who you are as a person.
Yeah. It's a great way. It's a great way to recenter and kind of find yourself. and discover other people. And for me, discover, new areas of spirituality. And I
Totally.
see wherever I go, whether I'm in a city or whether I'm on Table Mountain in South Africa, like you have those moments where you just reconnect to the whole purpose of being here, and it's outside of your daily life.
Yes.
And so I really believe at my core that travel is an amazing source of self-care, and particularly for a population that is traumatized generationally, and continuing to be traumatized generationally. It is so important for us to go out into the world and have that centering, and also find places where we are celebrated, not tolerated.
That's a great point. Yeah, that I know inadvertently helps Black Travel Box. The more Black people who are traveling, they obviously need your product. But that's really what got me most excited. And talking with you is when I read that, I said, "Oh my God, I did not realize that was an issue. That was something that." And so, how do we get into communities and get more people of color traveling? Because that really can change the world. Get out of the situation, because we're trying to figure out how to change the situation, how to improve environments, how to improve communities, how to improve homes, like what you grew up in, and you went down the college path because it's all you knew, but that's not what's happening in every home. And so how do we improve that? And travel is such a great way to do that. So that's awesome to see.
And the thing to remember is that, the Black community in the United States is not a monolith. So we are traveling. We're traveling in the millions, right? So there's about 15 million of us that are traveling internationally regularly, and we're considered avid travelers out of the 43 or so million that are in the country, and that's of all ages, right? Yep. And so while I agree that travel is a beautiful thing, and I think everybody should do it, I don't look at it as a way to uplift communities, or this isn't a charity situation, right? This is a market that is already being made that hasn't been tapped into sufficiently by brands. When was the last time you saw an ad for Jamaica that actually had a Black person in it? And Jamaica is a Black country,
yeah,
right? Unless they're the stewardess on the flight, you're just not going to see them. And this is why people get stopped, including myself, in line for first class, being told, "Oh, well, you're not getting on yet." You're not getting on yet.
I'm about to get on you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so it's not. I think the slippery slope is expecting that there is sort of that missionary aspect where it's like, well, we need to go get the flies off the kids' faces and make sure that they're fed and take great pictures with them. It's like, no. This is something that, my customer is, a little bit older. She's quite a bit wealthier. She's traveling because she has the income to do so. She lives well, and she's probably not married because she's doing her own thing. I call her the cool auntie. Now, some of them are married, some of them do have kids, but I feel like
that's my travel crush.
Cool auntie, right?
Yeah.
She comes through, she slips the kids at 20. She's just came back from Lisbon, it's a whole thing. And so, I do think it's great to have, and I would love to see more programs that allow kids to get out of, detrimental situations. But I also grew up in a space that I never traveled, and I have my National Geographics though.
Yes.
It came out fine. And so, I just want to make sure that we don't go down that path of seeing every opportunity as a way to pull people up by their bootstraps, because there's some Louboutin boots out there that, we need to recognize.
Fair enough. Okay, so the vaccine comes, the borders open. Where is Miss Brown going?
Oh, so a few people have asked me this, and it's actually really interesting because I know recently, I think it's Barbados, I'm going to say.
They did.
Yeah, they are now gearing up to bring in as many remote workers as possible. So they're doing a 12-month visa.
That's right. I heard that on the Breakfast Club. Yep.
Obviously I need to be here in the States because there's a lot that I'm managing for the business. But I will at least for a short period check out what they've got going. Because, it's nice to be somewhere beautiful and relaxing. But typically my
Totally.
MO is, historical tours, walks, and lots of good food. So there's a few places on the list.
On the list, yeah. I was supposed to go to San Sebastian. Has that made it on the list for you? So if you're a foodie, it's a big foodie town in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about you when you said you're a foodie, and yeah, a lot of history there. But all right, well, it's been a pleasure, Orion. I learned a lot from you, and I hope to continue to learn and follow. I'm going to have a crush on you and the Black Travel Box, if that's okay, as we continue this journey. So I wish you total success and peace.
Thank you so much. You too. Thanks for having me.
I enjoyed it. Take care.
All right.
Better change up your perspective. It's something new.
Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Remember our little talk before the show? Yep. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, share, all that jazz. It matters, people. You matter. Thanks again for listening. See you soon.